The Civic Type R is a hot hatch that only Honda could make. This 5th generation FK8 series model continues with the DNA of a track tearaway, but at the same time also now claims to have a softer side. As before, the car remains defiantly front-driven and frantically fast. It looks the real deal.
This is the first global Type R model, even America now gets it. And in keeping with that, we're promised that this Mark V model FK8 generation design should be easier to live with and will have wider appeal. Apparently though, that doesn't mean it will be any less extreme. In a world where the fastest hot hatches have lately become, well, subtle and sophisticated, this wild Civic continues to buck the trend and returns this genre to its years of shopping rocket excess. Now, key to its ability to do that, the trio of selectable driving modes that tweak throttle response, suspension feel, and the feedback from the new variable ratio steering system. The car defaults to its mid-sport setting on startup, but it's the ultimate Plus R option that you're going to need if you're planning to put all these skirts and spoilers to the test and take it on the track. At the same time though, as advertised, this 5th generation model can also be less of a racetrack refugee on the occasions when you need to dial everything down a bit. Now that is thanks to an extra comfort driving option that makes everything a little bit softer and less manic, allowing you to feel the benefits of the now more sophisticated multi-link rear suspension setup. The 4-cylinder turbocharged 2-litre VTEC power plant is pretty much the same as that used in the previous version of this car, and it produces very similar running cost returns, 36.7 mpg being possible on the combined cycle and 176 grams per kilometre of CO2. Exhaust changes though have improved the aural fireworks on offer and have marginally boosted the engine's total output by 10 PS to 320 PS. That's not enough to see any improvement on the old FK2 model's performance stats, but they were already pretty rapid with 400 newton meters of torque, and that's enough to see 62 miles an hour disappear in 5.7 seconds en route to our 169 miles an hour maximum. It really is an addictive recipe from a proper driver's car and a proper Type R. So what's different this time around? Well, this 5th generation Civic Type R is certainly a much larger thing than its predecessor, 165mm longer and 2mm wider, plus it sits 36mm lower too. What hasn't changed is the in-your-face styling treatment. I mean, Honda calls this a race car for the road, and you certainly get that feeling the first time you make this model's acquaintance. Time to take a seat inside, where the differences over the standard Civic are only slightly more restrained. These high-backed competition-style sports seats with their red belts are the main change. They're the lightest chairs ever to be fitted to a Type R, and they're the kind of thing that you'd have to pay extra for on most rivals, with prominent side bolsters for greater lateral support through the kind of extreme cornering that Honda thinks owners will habitually engage in. Typically for a Type R, the gear knob is fashioned from machined aluminium alloy, which looks nice but feels freezing in winter, while branding your palm with a gear shift chart in the heat of summer. It is beautifully positioned though, falling perfectly to hand and as close to the steering wheel as it could be for easy access to that short shift throw that gives you lovely, quick, snickety changes. Now the wheel, yes, that's the other point of Type R cabin differentiation. It's a proper flat-bottomed leather-trimmed affair with a really tactile feel. So let's take a seat in the rear. Taller folk might feel the effect of that lower roofline once they're inside though. Those over 6 foot will find their hair brushing against the ceiling. In every other regard though, this rear cabin is a vast spatial improvement on what was provided before. As you might expect would be the case given that the wheelbase is 94mm lengthier this time around. So let's finish by inspecting the boot, where first impressions are good. The tailgate is light to lift and it opens to reveal a large aperture that's complemented by a usefully low sill height. Now, we had expected that this FK8 design's slightly larger size and longer wheelbase would have delivered a bigger cargo area. As it is, the 420 litre capacity when loaded up to the window line is actually 57 litres less than was offered by the previous model, and that's not helped by a slight ramp in the section of the floor that's closest to the rear seats. This was necessary to accommodate the revised exhaust and the more sophisticated rear suspension. Even so, despite all that, this Honda does remain second only to Skoda's Octavia when it comes to overall boot capacity in this segment. Honda says that sales of C-segment cars like this one with more than 300 PS have tripled since the previous generation version of his car was launched. If from the widening range of options on offer you choose a Civic Type R, well, it'll be because you've remembered just why it was you wanted to buy a hot hatch in the first place. And you're going to revel in the extrovert, intoxicating driving experience it offers. There's nothing else quite like it.